Hello, I am Troy Baker, here to talk about The Last of Us, the show.
Because I played Joel.
Let's take a look. I think there's a temptation to look at Joel and go, how is he different from the show to the game?
Do you even realize what your life means?
And for me, I see the same character from two different angles.
Silver Lake. Ah! It's not a real town name. It's a resort.
A resort?
I see a grizzled survivor from one, and I see a loving father from another. I see a stoic, reserved, no emotion from one person, and I see someone who's genuinely trying to find an opportunity to laugh in the other. And neither of them are wrong. Again, if we've done our job right, that character is a diamond that we can hold up in the light and look at the different facets and go, this is just as real as the other side.
Yeah, so that was hard and fun.
I'll never forget the first time that I met Pedro. We were filming up in Waterton, which is this beautiful national wildlife park, and it's cold. It's, February, I think, at this point. I had seen him from a distance, like we were shooting something second unit while they were shooting something else. And finally we're here, and it's all kind of like camp, like, because we're just in this little small town that's supposed to be Silverton. He shows up, and it's kind of like that Spider-Man meme. We kind of look at each other and kind of point, and I was like, we come over and just kind of give each other a hug. And I look at him and I say, I have so many questions for you. And he goes, I have none for you. And I was like, we're going to be friends. He is one of the most charming, funny, witty people that I've ever met. I love those attributes about his character, but the thing that I respect most about him is that he held Joel in such careful hands, and he loves Joel just as much as I do. And he cares about that character and wants to be a custodian of that character just as much as I do. And I saw where he took him in the first season, and I can't wait to see where he takes him in the second.
Billions of puppets with poisoned minds, permanently fixed on one unifying goal: to spread the infection to every last human alive by any means necessary.
This is funny. Craig had this idea for the intro, and they tried a whole bunch of different things. They actually shot this.
Also an epidemiologist, I presume the prospect of
This was the last thing that they shot.
might as well.
No.
No?
No.
They shot this right before the show was going to premiere.
Been at war with the virus from the start. Sometimes millions of people die, as in an actual war, but in the end, we always win.
John Hannah, he was like, I want to bring this in. I want to set this up as this is a real thing, and we have to onboard the world to the science of the show.
Right.
Oh, in the most dire terms.
Bacteria.
No.
You like saying no?
Yes.
And so he was like, I want John Hannah to play this scientist that's going to explain to us. Because, in the opening of the Last of Us game, or in the trailer, we had this beautiful clip from the BBC Earth, or Planet Earth, narrated by Attenborough, talking about, what this cordyceps fungus was. He's like, I'm not going to do the same thing there, but I do need to do the same kind of heavy lifting for the science and the lore into this show. And they literally shot it last. But the funny thing is John Hannah, the night before they were supposed to be filming, texted a picture to Craig Mazin. He goes, uh-oh. And he had walked into like a window or a door or something. And so he had like a black eye. And so makeup really had to do some heavy lifting and cover up the fact that he had like a big bruise on his face for this scene.
They don't exist. It's not even possible to make them.
So if that happens,
We lose.
The beauty of, when Neil came to me and he said, hey, I want you to play James in the Last of Us show. And I went, oh my God, dude, thank you. It's an honor. Who's James? And he goes, buddy boy. I'm like, oh. It's like, so no season 2. He goes, no season 2. Got it. One episode and done. You pretty much know that if you meet a side character in The Last of Us, probably not going to go well for them. So having played the game, I knew that the character I was stepping into play in the show didn't end well. Barry specifically died. What I love is that we really got to show it in the show, and we didn't get to really necessarily show it in the game. So we spent an entire day with that whole cleaver gag, and I spent the day going through about, I think, 8 wardrobe changes and spending a lot of time sitting in a pool of my own blood. Here's where the show gets it right. They understand what the story is about. They know that this is a story about love and the extent to which a parent will go to protect and love their child. There's never a doubt that they know exactly the target that they are aiming towards. That allows them to take some creative license and to showcase in a different way because they don't have the same constraints. If we're playing a game, it's like, how do we keep the player engaged in this story? When do we put them on the stick? When do we take them off the stick? When you're watching a show, it's all a passive medium. So I have to do different things to communicate the same narrative goals. I don't have the same resources by which to do that. So I have to depend upon other resources by which to convey the same thing. If you're playing the game and you go from fall to winter and all of a sudden you're playing as Ellie, I can't convey what it's like to all of a sudden that camera swings around Ellie and you realize if I move forward on the left stick, Ellie moves. And the last time that I was playing as somebody besides Joel, that person died. I don't know I can't narratively do that, cinematically do that in a show. So then I get to do that in a different way. I get to present that in a completely different context that still accomplishes the same narrative goal.
If you don't think there's hope for the world, why bother going on?
You haven't seen the world.
I think what surprised me most about how the whole team at HBO adapted the game was how they were able to authentically capture or recapture some of the most iconic moments, but then also completely present them in a different light. Like, you can't talk about this show without talking about Long, Long Time. The Bill and Frank episode is so synonymous now with the HBO show that it is just as inextricably tied to the show and to The Last of Us as anything that preceded it with the game.
What, you know this guy or something?
The history and those characters and how they were able to extrapolate those stories was mind-blowing. But then showing up on set for my episode and seeing how they had recreated that sawmill. There's some props and some production design you guys you'll never see. Camera may have swept past it. But the level of attention to detail that went into that, because everybody on that crew was a fan of The Last of Us, and all they wanted to do was make something that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the game. That was the level of artistry, talent, and passion that went into making that show.
Ellie, I think I found another one of them comics you've been reading.
Oh, cool.
There was a part of me that was hoping that they were going to go into the saga of Ish and kind of explain more, like just as we did with Bill and Frank, maybe there was going to be a whole Ish episode. But it's funny, just like I had with the Last of Us game, all of the ideas that I have, I realize pale in comparison to the ideas that actually get made.
I set a fairly reasonable goal to make the best television show ever.
I think I find more joy and definitely more value and benefit from experiencing the ideas of people like Neil and Craig and how they view this world, these characters, and this story, and what their lens looks like, even better than mine.
It's that Neil Druckmann, the genius who made the game in the first place, who created the story, these characters, the whole world, he was so generous and flexible and smart.
Josiah and Martin think they spotted some deer the other night, a couple miles east.
It's funny because from the physical, you would think, well, James is going to be an on-camera, so clearly that's going to be more physically demanding. And there was, it was cold. It was minus 16 on one day with wind, and the air is literally freezing out in front of you. You could see the particulates and the moisture in the air is freezing. Not snow or ice, but just literally the air is freezing. They had battery operated like thermals that we could like keep ourselves warm with, but nothing's going to do anything for your ears. Thankfully, I had like a toque that I could put over my ears, but like your face, you're just eating it the whole time. Pardon the pun. That was definitely a physically demanding role, especially there's this one move where I had to, with boots, run around the house on grass that was frozen, had melted, or snow had melted on it. So now it was cold again and it made ice. So there were ice patches that I had to run around. I'm looking as Ellie is on the horseback and I'm having to track her through the trees, but I need to look at her in between the hole between these two trees so that camera sees me, goes slow enough so the camera can catch up to me, but then track her just enough time to single hand vault over this rickety fence, land, and then turn on a 90 and take off running to my left, all while holding a 25-pound rifle. So I'm like, I can't wait to see a stunt person do this. They're like, you can do this. I'm like, I really don't think I can, man. They're like, well, we need you to do it because we're going to be on you. Like, we're going to be close tight with you and like a 27 on your face. So I'm like, oh man, please don't get hurt. Just don't get hurt. And so I'm like running and I watch the stunt person do it. It's like, hey, you just go like this and then single, put your hand down, kick your feet up over and land, turn and run. I'm like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh man, here we go. And it's almost a oneer. So it's come around the corner, run, look, clock her, clock fence, jump off this stump, single pole vault over, land, turn left, run. And I do it. And the stunt coordinator looks at me and is like, cut. I'm like, they're going to replace me. As he was like, that looked awesome. Can you slow down because you're actually going too fast and camera didn't catch you as you were looking at us. I'm like, yeah. So I got to do it again. Actually, I think we ended up doing it like 5 or 6 times. And when we saw the episode, I'm like, hey, that's me. Like I did that. And so much so, like when I turn in a run and I'm supposed to go up to plant myself up against a tree and clock her with my rifle and then fire, they were like, hey man, I really like how you're throwing yourself into the tree. I'm like, well, I just don't know how to stop my body from moving. And so you see me, I slam myself up against the tree and I clock it and bang and fire. That scene I'm actually pretty proud of. I'll take a little feather in the cap for that one. How that compares to Joel, the physical demands on Joel is, I'm in a stupid mocap suit that's just the most unflattering piece of cloth you could put on your body. Depending upon if it's part 1 or part 2, I've got a helmet that I'm wearing strapped to me with a camera hanging off of it. There's one scene in part 1 where we had to, we're climbing through this window when we're in Billstown, and I had to climb, and I had learned how to fall and roll, and so I fall through the window and I land on the ground on the mats, and I kind of do a little ninja roll. And Neil goes, I was like, does it not look good? He goes, no, it looks too good. Like, you're like doing this cool stunt master roll. He goes, I need you to eat. I'm like, oh. So I fall and just go bam and land and get up. And Ellie's like, gotta go. I'm like, yep. I'm like trying to find, my bearings.
Sitting ducks here.
Another ladder over here.
Keep going. I'm right behind you.
But the difference between, we shot the Last of Us show, each episode shot for about a month, which is a very long shoot. 30 days per episode versus probably 120 for The Last of Us. So there's 2 different kind of demands, even physically, on an actor. And the way that I like to say it is, just like in The Last of Us, it's an economy of resources. So if I'm on The Last of Us, HBO's Last of Us set, There's 1,000 people that are part of that crew, and they have found the perfect location for that scene. We are out in the wilderness next to a beautiful river. It's freezing cold. I've got actual wardrobe on. I'm holding a prop rifle. I've got a fake dead deer at my feet, and I'm looking at a sawmill that they've literally built from the ground up. I've got everything worked for me. They've got these millions of dollars of cameras on me. There's all these people that are there to make this like as authentic as possible. And they go, we've provided you all these resources. We're trusting that your performance will meet the needs that we have for this scene. If I go into my booth over here, I've got a microphone and a script and maybe somebody on Zoom. And so those resources are taken from me, but the needs of the scene are still the same. We have to convey why we chose to write this scene, shoot this scene, and present this thing to the audience. It's the disparity of the dream that was in the director's mind versus the dream to the audience to whom it's intended. So how do we get there? So it's an economy of resources and trust. I then trust them. You're not giving me resources. So I'm trusting that the performance I'm giving you is going to be the thing that's going to match up most to what we are both going for. So there's physical demands, there's emotional demands, there's the physical demands of what a set like that requires of a person, and then there's the physical demands of what it requires of someone stepping onto a mocap stage. It's all just an economy of resources and trust. It's so funny because, people ask me all the time, like, are you gonna do more on camera stuff? Or you've played some great characters in games. Which one of those would you want to see, play in a TV show or a film? I really like games. I understand games. That does not mean that film or TV has no appeal to me. Clearly, I loved working on the HBO show. But I think what this whole experience has taught me is that if I play a character in a game and I know how to do that economy, I know how to deal with those resources, I think I get more excited now about seeing somebody else step into that role in a different medium who is more adept with those resources and then showing me a different version of the same character that I've played far more than I am like, I hope I get to play that character in a TV film, or a show or a film. I'm more excited about the other version of it than I am repeating my version of it.
Yes, sir.
We're not sick. Sir, we are not sick!
Thank you for sticking with me as we walked through The Last of Us. Many tears were shed. Hopefully you smiled a little bit. If you have a story about The Last of Us that you want to share with me, I'd love to hear it. Tag me on it at official Troy Baker on Instagram or TikTok.